Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Post Conference Presser for Anfield Index. I'm Dave Davis coming to you from a pretty cold, pretty dark, pretty miserable Edinburgh, but looking forward to a Merseyside derby and enjoying another Arne slot press conference. So we'll go through the usual, ladies and gents. We'll be talking about the questions that Arne Slot was asked. We'll be talking about the answers he gave. We'll look back to the other night, maybe painful for a few of you, the 3-3 draw against Newcastle. We'll look at the threats that Everton may bring before you scoff or chortle. It is a derby. Remember that. This will be tough. This will not be an easy game. And then we'll do the usual, the lineups, the scores, and you probably guess I'm going to pick for the scorer, but I will tell you anyway. So let's get into it, ladies and gents. Arne Slot. Now, he was asked a variety of different questions, answered them all well again. Probably not as standout as last week, but I've seen a few quotes doing the rounds about the contract one. The way you read it indicates that he came across sort of snippy or pecking, if you want. So I'm actually just going to play you. I'm going to play you, but listen carefully to what Arne Slot said when he was asked by Vinny O'Connor on Sky Sports News about the contract latest. Let's listen to this one.
I'll ask you about Virgil's. There has been a report this week that he's been offered a contract. Virgil has. What can you tell us, if anything?
What do you think the answer is going to be?
I know what the answer is going to be, but I've always got to check, haven't I?
Your boss is always telling you have to ask the
check.
Yeah. Maybe tell your boss that you always get the same answer, so it's a bit boring for the people to listen to this press conference.
Well, it's like you tell your players what to do, so my boss tells me what to do. So if your players don't do what you ask them to do,
but I hope I give them better tips than the ones you get them.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I like the way he almost has to have the last word a little bit over the journos, kind of keep them in their place a little bit, so to speak. But there's a couple of things to this one, and I've seen people jump on it in terms of why is this being asked again? Where else are the journos supposed to ask it? Contract questions have always been asked at press conferences. That is nothing new. That is nothing that will ever stop at all either. So we shouldn't be pretending that. At the same time, and people will jump on this because I know people have talked about it, Richard Hughes is not a visible or public figure. It's natural they're going to ask Arne Slot about this. He also has that deniability, whatever he knows, plausible deniability, if you want to call it that, of being able to say that is not my remit, whether he knows or not, whatever input he's had or not. So we'll go round until we get some news on that. So I'm going to give the journos a bit of an easier time on that, ladies and gents. But where else are they supposed to ask? And by the way, if they just stopped asking completely, you'd jump on them, wouldn't you? So there you go, first consideration. More importantly, he was asked about the derby. If you can't get into this, what are you talking about? I don't care if it's 12:30 on Saturday. My mind is already there. I'm already starting to think, which you'll hear shortly, about lineups and different things. So he was asked, you've played in a lot of derbies, talked about the Klassiker, the PSV versus Feyenoord one. Is it a nice experience? He said, it's only a nice experience if the result goes the way. So we're focusing on that the most. And then there was a quick follow-up about, with it being the last derby at Goodison Park, the recent situation, whether the 3 points mean more. We never talk about 3 points before a game. You can only talk about this, especially if you talk about a team like Everton, who's done so well recently. 3 clean sheets and a very good game during the week at Wolves. We know we have to be ready for a tough game against a good side and a very well-managed side as well. The fans will be as loud as Newcastle ones, maybe even louder. So we have to be prepared for this game. The way you took this as well at the same time, that we're not going to talk about 3 points. We are just 100% laser focused on this game. Make no mistake, and you'll see the quotes, or you may have heard them, may have seen them from Virgil van Dijk. These boys are razor sharp focused on this. No two ways about it. And also, he's right, it will be loud. Hopefully, because it's a 12:30, it won't quite be as boisterous. That might suit us a little bit more. Who knows? But total business answer there, as expected from Arne Slot. He was also asked about injury updates, about how people are feeling. And Kelleher got mentioned, obviously, because of the error at the end. So we'll do the injury updates first of all. Everyone close, but no cigars, I'm afraid, ladies and gents. So Alisson, as he said, not ready, but very soon. Then asked, and he kind of mentioned Federico and Jota, Chiesa, said both are close to being back. So there's three who are close, but they are not there. You can almost be reading too much into this, but you almost get the feeling that not for this one. Girona, you wouldn't rule out. Maybe it's a good one, but Fulham, you'd kind of be a bit surprised if at least one or maybe two of those aren't ready for Fulham. But we will have to see. What did he say specifically about the Kelleher bit and everything? He goes, an interesting quote. It was 1-0 when Joe Gomez made the mistake, and he saved us there, as in Kelleher. Maybe he saved us at that point, as if we go 2-0 down, you never know what could happen. Things could have been even harder. Unfortunately for Queeve, if you make mistakes, it's very difficult for anyone else to cover it up for you. He's done that a few times for us. Unfortunately, as a team, we were not able to help him. And mostly, if he misjudged the ball, as he's our last player, that's what can happen. He's disappointed like all the others as we drop points from a situation 1 minute or so before the end, but he can go into this game with a lot of confidence. Such is just the life of a goalkeeper, isn't it, really? Let's be honest in terms of what follows. You save 9 shots, it's almost expected. You let that 10th in, you're the villain. The opposite of the score, isn't it? It's 9, it's, maybe not for Darwin Núñez, who knows? But if you score that one, you are the hero, aren't you almost? That's just the life of a goalkeeper. And I like the fact of what he said. Although again, not brutally, but he's not afraid of calling out players. He mentions that Joe Gomez mistake. Frank, blunt honesty, no doubts about that. Not saying he's wrong. Maybe, Queeve will use that sort of disappointment to fire him a little bit. Maybe that's the best way of putting it realistically. And I like that they're all disappointed. You hope they're all ready to channel that into absolutely smashing out of Everton. No doubt about it. So he got the injuries, and as well, he mentioned about Alexis McAllister because he was asked about that and how everything went. He said, well, there is the thing down there is hardly made any fouls, but we have to look at some of our players now. Ryan is also only 1 card away from being suspended. How is that possible? Because we hardly make any fouls. And if you look at the McAllister at Newcastle one, you could argue if we saw all the decisions afterwards, was it correct he got a yellow card? And he kind of pauses in like, you fill in the gap there realistically. But in this season, players will always be suspended, and it's at moments you feel we could have used him. The good thing for us is we've got 4 main midfielders. Now listen to this, people, that have played with us. With Dom, Curtis, Ryan and Maka. One is not available, and Harvey Elliott is on the way back. So that line maybe isn't our main worry, but if you look at playing time, then maybe we could talk about other lines. And he went on to talk about defence and the issues there. But a couple of things on that. Yeah, it's bad news that McAllister's suspended for tomorrow. And he'll be suspended against Girona as well. Gravenberch, only 1 yellow away. So naturally, you don't want this to happen, but Fulham at home, maybe if he does get suspended, that will be the switch over. So that's something to consider. The big thing I took from this answer, if I'm Tyler Morton or Wataru Endo, and I've seen this, I think it tells a lot about your potential or non-existent future. And I know people will be, well, they haven't played, but it's specifically, he's asked and talking about this period. He name checks the 4 main ones. He name checks Harvey Elliott as well as almost a 5th alternative to come in. And you can see he's considering his options there. But there's no mention of Endo at all. No mention of Morton at all. I just genuinely don't think he sees them as potential possible alternatives. Even tomorrow, I think, where Endo could be useful. I'm not saying as a start, but at certain points he might get on. I don't know, but it's just interesting the way Slot almost dismisses him quite frankly, or just doesn't mention him maybe is the best way of in it. So, yeah, something that I clocked from the press conference, the non-mention of players in a few of the answers that way. But we'll see. He was also then asked about set pieces, the hot topic right now for Arsenal, and what they're doing. He said, I don't think Everton, the only team trying to block a keeper or the set piece. That was everywhere here 5, 6, 7 years ago. Nobody spoke about set pieces. Now everybody is talking about the importance of set pieces. Everton are definitely a team that can score from a set piece. And we've got some players too that can score from a set piece. So we're focused on ones we have to defend. In the big games, and he named a load of teams, the main games like this can be decided by set pieces. The Derby is a big game, so set pieces is a big part of that as well. Said set pieces about 8,000 times in the answer, but if you take that part away, he is right. It's not like it's a brand new thing. It's just become the hot topic, hasn't it? Having a set piece coach, and mainly because Lego Head and his troops are doing their thing. We're trying to win the league by set pieces almost. And you probably all saw that rule that's coming out, or I don't know when it's coming in, about the 8-second rule, and a corner will be conceded. So that'll be something. However, on a serious note, and back to this game, set pieces will be important. That is something Everton will target. And they have got some dangerous headers of the ball. There's no two ways about it. Tarkowski will be someone to keep an eye on. He will throw himself in there. So, yeah, that might factor into my lineup, which I'll explain later on. But we cannot be switched off at corners, free kicks in a dangerous area where Everton will just look to swing it into the box and try and create havoc. That will be part of their game plan. Make no mistake about it. The final two, he was asked about Trent and how having him changes the dynamic. He said, and he kind of did a defensive quanta here, Jarrell played quite a good game. Not everyone is agreeing with me, but if you look back at the game in the one-on-ones, he actually had no problem. There was a few times Gordon was a threat, but he was not involved. If Connor's available, he's maybe a similar type to Trent that can also do underlaps, but wants to make overlaps as well. If we play with Jarrell, who's a different type, he's a bit like Ben White in that position. Trent and Connor have a big impact on our offensive game if they play. Couple of things with this. A bit like Trent Alexander-Arnold. You are talking the best right back in world football. There's no one can do what he does with the ball. And case in point, breaking the fullback assist record, getting 2 assists for Mo Salah on Wednesday night. But just his range, his quality of passing, and say no one does that at all. So it's always a strange one, you could argue, when he is asking about that. Jarrell Quansah did the job to his best of his ability. Jarrell Quansah is no right back. Let's not pretend for 1 second. You saw on Wednesday night so often when the ball progressed and when it went to Jarrell Quansah, Newcastle targeted that, and Gomez a little bit as well on the ball. Quansah was going back inside. He didn't have the same passing options, same passing lanes available to him that he normally would in centre-back. And actually you saw, as Slot mentioned, that he did okay one-on-ones. When he went back into the middle late on, and it was Gomez that came off, Quansah actually started to pass quite well and did force that, a few things through the lines as well. So that is something to consider. But Jarrell Quansah will never pretend to be a right back. So why people are bashing him too much about the performance, I'm not really sure on that. Trent is back. That's the main thing. Trent is going to be fit for the Derby. A massive, massive positive. And the final question I'll pick out is a brilliant one as ever from Mo Stewart. So shout out to him. Was asked about Gravenberch, the yellow cards, and the officials. A wide-ranging question that Mo always does. So what did Arne Slot say to this one? He said, we don't talk about ref decisions with players, especially after the game. It's of no use. When it comes to Ryan, the reason I actually took him off was because he played every single game. And it's almost impossible at times for me to take him off because you're always thinking, what will happen if he comes off with the team? For the first 10 minutes of the second half, though, he and the team did start to play better. But this was a game where we felt maybe in the second half, someone else could come and do the same as a minimum. And we could also rest him as well because he's played so many games in every minute already. And that's why We were 2-1 down at that moment, and it seemed smarter to go more offensive, which worked out, but he will start tomorrow. I think the big thing about Wednesday's game even, sorry. Ryan Gravenberch looked tired. Ryan Gravenberch, I'm not saying he's not looked a bit tired at other points of the season, but his legs, and look at the amount he's been asked to do. He's played every minute of every Premier League and every Champions League game so far. He's being asked to do an awful lot. This was also a quick turnaround. And with the derby, it was a great sub. It was also a great sub because look at the impact Szoboszlai had when Curtis dropped deeper, those fresh legs. So I get that. And it was all to do. So he is fresh to today. And obviously with McAllister there, really important that Gravenberch has had, it's not much rest, I know, but any is better than nothing at this moment in time. So another good press conference, plenty to talk about, ladies and gents. As ever, I would implore you to listen to it fully, watch it back, whatever you want to call it. And having checked, there are suggestions. There will, no surprise, because the derby, be embargo comments later on. So we will see about 10:30 what they bring. Let's turn our attention back to the other night. I mean, Newcastle Clues. People are still finding this a bit painful. You've got to move on, but 3-3, and overall, it's a decent point at a tough place to go where Arsenal lost and City got a point. Keep that in mind. We look, as always, for any clues or things we identify from this one. For me, a couple of things. The backups struggled, didn't they? The backups have been so good when they stepped up this season. Let's not pretend. Absolutely sensational. But it was a night to forget for Joe Gomez, Jarell Quansah. Kelleher will want to get it out of his memory quite quickly. To be fair, though, at the same time, as people will clock, it wasn't a night particularly for Ryan Gravenberch, McAllister, large part of the team. There really was a first half, second half differential. So that's the first thing to call out. The second thing is, like Southampton, sometimes you just need your elite players. You can make it up and say, oh, everyone does it. No, elite players do elite things. And that is exactly what Mo Salah did. It's absolutely insane that at this stage of the season, 14 in, we're talking about 13 goals and 8 assists. That is insane form. Not good, insane. Best player in the world at the moment. So he was elite. You need your elite players to do elite things at times. It's just the way it works. Trent Alexander-Arnold with a couple of assists, another elite player that we've got. Virgil, just to kind of organise the line, that was really important as well. And the other thing I would really say is the big sort of lesson, a big clue from the Newcastle game. The freshness. The 3 subs, we were already starting to gain control, but that pushed it up a notch. That's where, if obviously the mistake's not made, we win the game and you pinpoint it as, look at the freshness, look at the players coming on, look at the difference they made. So, as well as Trent, we talked about, Szoboszlai, Diaz made a huge difference. And we'll come to that in the lineup for this one. Which brings us to Everton, doesn't it? And their threats. Don't laugh when I say that. Some people will, because they are a team that do possess threats. I mean, when you look at the table right now, you'll look and say, yeah, but they're 12th. They're not a good team. I know that. They've only won 4. I mean, scored 21 because they ship goals, don't they? 22 overall. However, this is important to call out because that looks on the surface a really bad goals conceded column, especially when you start moving down the league. But if you look at their recent results, yeah, it's do you know what? I just realised I'm looking at the wrong bloody league there. There we go. Thinking, where's this table? Because I'm looking at bloody years ago. That's why. There we go, ladies and gents. Interesting. An interesting one. In fact, let's, rather than looking at this, let's go to the official Premier League website because this is doing my nut in. There we go. Everton, 15th. 14 scored, 21 conceded. This run of form. There we are. Southampton away. That's not a good result at all. Draw West Ham away, 0-0. Not conceded many, 0-0. Brentford at home. I mean, I watched 5 minutes of that and that was enough. United pumped them at Old Trafford. And then the other day, they reversed it. So lost 4-0 to United, but beat Wolves 4-0. So they're an interesting team in that regard. Now, we got the right bloody table up there. Sorry about that, ladies and gents. So they don't score many. I mean, look at that, 14. But we said the same about Newcastle the other day, and look what happened there. This is also a derby. They will be the bang up for this. Maybe in the weirdest way to say this, and people are probably going to disagree, is a 12:30 the worst thing in the world? Because it will just stop the Blue Noses screaming too much. You know, they're still waking up probably, etc. We know they can be a bit dreary affairs, and that might suit us just to be calm, controlled. However, there are threats to this, and we'll talk about this game a little bit more. Couple of people I'll pinpoint. Dwight McNeil played well in the few games I've seen him. Look at that in the Premier League so far. 3 goals and 3 assists. He's one that I think he's been their star from the games I've seen. If just talking to a few Blue Noses I know this week, they do really rate him highly and say he has been our best player. And Dye's got a few working as well with Everton fans at the same time. There's not many goals naturally across the team. You know that because of the lack of goals, 14 in the Premier League. But Dwight McNeil is someone I would just signpost. And Calvert-Lewin does like a goal in the derby occasionally, doesn't he? So let's not pretend this is anything other than a really, really difficult game there, in all honesty, ladies and gents. This is not going to be easy. And I know some people will go, and this is kind of true, largely they are a terrible team. Largely they don't score many, they ship a few goals. But yeah, they don't score many, but they'll be looking for set pieces. Tarkowski will be a threat. Calvert-Lewin will be a threat. They'll be looking to make it an ugly game. That will suit them, really, won't it? In fact, you probably suspect we will control possession. They'll almost look to break us. I might be wrong on that, but that is what I think they will try and do, and press high up on occasions as well. It's gonna be a fascinating game. It really is. It's all just about winning, no injuries. Honestly, I mean that. The performance, people will talk about it. Completely irrelevant to me, whatever the performance is. It's if you win the derby, you win the derby. In fact, do you remember those games like the one where Mane hits the post from Sturridge, that scuffer, and then Mane taps it in? Do you remember the one where Divock Origi from Jordan Pickford, he's only got little arms, and all that type of stuff? Of course you do. As contests, they were pretty shit. But we won a derby with last-minute winners, so you love those games. That's what it's about. Line-up, score, and scorers. This one is really tough as the derby beckons. Not. I actually think it's pretty straightforward to name this Liverpool team, bar one position. It's Kelleher in nets, it's Trent at right back, Robbo at left back, and Virgil. I'm going to come back to the centre half. It's Szoboszlai, Jones, and Gravenberch as the 3 in there. Probably Jones more likely to drop in where McAllister is, you suspect. Szoboszlai to push on. The front 3. I actually think this is easy as well because of how bad Darwin Núñez was against Newcastle. I think it's quite easy to say Gakpo left, Luis Diaz in that false 9, and Mo Salah on the right. That would be, I think, an easy 3 to name. I'd be astonished, really would, if it was anything else. We will have to see on that. Centre back, you're thinking, why didn't I name that? I just wonder about Jarell Quansah. I know the smart money says Joe Gomez, but a couple of things. Joe Gomez did struggle and he made that error and he was taken off against Newcastle. The other thing to say is probably he's not bad in the air. I'm just it's not all good, bad. We're not 12, but you'd say Quansah, yeah, he is a bigger size than Joe Gomez. Tarkowski will probably be looking to sort of attach himself to one of those. So it'd be interesting to see if that plays into a factor because they've not really got devastating pace to beat you, Everton, but they are big in the air and they are physical. I just wonder, I don't know. If you ask me to bet, I'm going Gomez, but I would not be surprised. That's the one I'm saying if it is Jarrell Quansah. But that is my lineup, ladies and gents. Scorers, as I said, anything with a win and no injuries, you don't really care about the performance. But maybe it's heart over head. I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to go 2-1. And only a fool would be betting against Mo Salah not being on the score sheet, wouldn't they really? Or even getting the winner at this moment in time. We're talking about an elite footballer, the best player in the world, notching up record numbers and playing as an elite, not just world class, an elite player. So it's an easy decision there for me. 2-1, Mo Salah to score. Nerves until then, though, isn't there, ladies and gents? As I said, there will be embargo comments coming out later. If you do want, as always, to get the full context, always watch the press conference back. You'll see that. You'll see a few videos out of it on Anfield Index later. However, on Friday, the 6th of December, less than 24 hours before the Merseyside derby, that was another post-conference presser for Anfield Index.